Okay, so this is the second Metro Monday. It's the focus on one specific station. Last station I talked about Roman columns and Greek letters. Today, just briefly, I like to talk about two things, always relevant, high school and country songs. So, first one is country songs. And I just want everybody to remember the old Garth Brooks song. It said, "Thank God for unanswered prayers." So let's be careful in thinking about what happens, what's going to be here, not be here. Do the best we can to figure out what we're going to do. So sometimes it is thank God for unanswered prayers. And the second is high school. And I went to an all-boys high school in New York City. First day of class, you get into class, you're sitting in the stands, and the brother principal says, "Look to your left, look to your right. One of the three of you will not be here for graduation." Uh-oh. But it was competition. It was competition in the classroom. It was competition on the fields. Things I thought I wanted to do and be totally changed in those 4 years, and I survived. But it's also competition here, right? So we can smile about it and say we're all friends, get together. It's about competition. There will be winners and losers. There's winners and losers for the folks that come here, for the other companies we try to lure here, stealing people away from each other from Washington to come out here. CBP is a great example. Hopefully we'll talk about that a little bit. It is competition. But it doesn't mean you can't have friends and move forward. Some of my best friends are those people I competed with in high school, and I expect us to do the same thing. Competimates, I was at Lockheed for a while. We had 20 subs, big companies. In the morning, a major multi-billion-dollar competition. In the afternoon, it was a different agency, and we were competitors. So I ask everybody, think about that, but it is roll up your sleeves. This is a competition. Think about the future. A lot of things are going to happen. The goal for the chamber is so there are no secrets. Think ahead. What's going to happen? Anticipate. Where's the funding? We need to be thinking about the bankers right now. Where do you want to take the risk? Who's got the plan? Where are you willing to put your money? How are we going to compete? I saw the Wheelie Station. Fantastic look at what they're trying to do there with big Comstock project. They've got others, right? So it's competition. But for us, it's transparency. Let's talk about what we're going to do, where we want to be. And remember, thank God for unanswered prayers. You never know.
Thank you. I'm sort of stepping in the shoes of Rodney Lusk, who did the first session. So I took a couple of slides from them, and for the people who are new in the audience, I like to repeat a little bit about our organization. We are basically the business promotion agency for the Fairfax County government. We are not, particularly international, a lot of people think that we are a chamber. We work with a lot of chambers, but we don't do policy. We don't have members. We do basically the business promotion and help business getting into Fairfax County and growing into Fairfax County. As you may or may not know, we have 3 marketing divisions. National is Rodney Lusk. Business diversity is Karen Swan. I'm heading up the international marketing division, and that includes our what we call overseas offices. And the reason we have picked these cities is that they have worse traffic problems than we have here. Seriously, if you talk, I just came back from London, and traffic is a lot worse than here. If you work with prospects from this area, nobody ever brings up the traffic issues because they are much worse here. They don't even see that as any point of discussion. So that's where we have our overseas offices. Next slide, John. This is a slide we use in our deck, and I would highlight. Well, this is first, our basically value-added proposition, and I basically summarized that internationally as diversity, and I think that applies for the whole county. That sometimes you don't realize how diverse you are. Secondary, we use that graph because internationally you really get a lot of the questions, where the heck is Fairfax County? Until the moment you bring up Dulles International Airport. Then all of a sudden loads of people are there, have been there, and then realize if you land in that important asset, you drive all the way to the White House, you drive straight to Fairfax County. Next slide, John. Major employers, and this is just in the Dulles-Hernan area. Rodney showed it, I added a couple of them. And you can see basically a couple of well-known logos, but also international companies like iDirect, Volkswagen, Audi, Tata Communications, all in a stone throw from the railway station the metro station I'm going to talk about. Next slide. This is what Rodney did last month, basically the Hernan Transit Station. So just to give you an orientation view, he did it from east to west, and I would like to continue the trend. So I also would like to go from east to west. Next slide. And this is just an aerial you can see here from this area. And just by coincidence, you can see the Hyatt Regency, but you can also see, just before I go into the station, how close we are to Dulles International Airport. Next slide. This is the region I'm going to talk about, and basically I restrict myself this afternoon to highlight a couple of locations here. This is the CIT, and I call this what I call Amazon land, and I think we're not going to talk about it this afternoon. So I stick to the south side of the toll road. The reason for showing this is, from my perspective, you will hear more from Jeff probably about the details of the project, is again what we talked about, the Hernan station. Here you see again basically a project that is highlighting office space, retail, basically supporting the live, work and play methodology and philosophy we have here in Fairfax County. So I guess you will hear probably more later from Jeff. Crimson Partner from Herndon is working on, and I will show it just a second, basically a change of plans where originally 2 office buildings is now much more residential focused on 866 family residential projects. The last project I would like to show, as a matter of fact, we don't have windows here, otherwise you could just look outside here and you can see basically this bridge coming from over the toll road from Innovation Center here into the planned office space here. This is Innovation Center South. Again, a 1.6 million square feet project, a combination of residential, office space, retail, a 2,000 space parking garage. It is public-private partnership, and everything, at least I'm told, is slated for a 2019 delivery. Next slide. And this, again, I think we talked about it in when we had the Hernan session. How should we position the Dulles-Hernan area for strategic positioning? Metro accessibility, you will hear much more about that later. Proximity to retail and other amenities, walkable open areas, mixed-use development, proximity to housing, urban location amenities. And again, I'd like to close with the proximity to Dulles International Airport. Again, I think it's highly underestimated how important that asset is for this region, for Fairfax County, Northern Virginia, but I think particularly here for the Dulles-Hernan area. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Loudoun County Economic Development, we really take a look at our whole county, and in terms of economic development, what we feel is so special and unique about Loudoun County is the marriage of the East and the West, of the urban and the rural, and the opportunities that we present to companies to locate, and really whatever makes the most sense for their company. And this particular property, as we'll go into, and I'm going to leave the details to the development to Tristan and Dave, who will be speaking later, but we really take a look at all of these things that are up on the screen, these 8 ways plus many more that make Loudoun County so unique, and then try to take a look at what do we have available to offer to companies. And for us, that transit-oriented development, these Metro Mondays, when you're focusing on these upcoming Silver Line stations, they really present an opportunity to be creative, to do something interesting, to do something new. This property, the marriage of the developed side and the greenfield space, really gives us something unique to pitch, to offer, the ability to marry these 2 counties. And what we have found, particular to the Innovation Center station, is the ability to collaborate with our partners in Fairfax, to work with different developers, really is essential. It's not just something that's interesting or that the geeks in us get excited about, this idea that we could collaborate. We're really making that happen and looking at it holistically. Our vision is a diverse and globally competitive Loudoun economy. And we do that by strengthening and diversifying Loudoun's economy by providing world-class and innovative customer-focused services. We work to attract, grow, and retain targeted businesses of all size. We do that through looking at specific clusters that we update on a regular basis, but overlaying that are a couple of key areas: international and transit-oriented development. At all of our metro stations, we take a look at what is that mix, not just mixed use, but what are the types of companies that are growing. Where's Loudoun going to be in the next 20 years, 30 years, 40 years? And that's what we're looking at for all of these stations. Connectivity, as Jan said, and everyone will say, this property in particular, its proximity to Dulles Airport cannot be overstated. Loudoun County, we pride ourselves on having 70% of the world's internet traffic travel through our data centers. Our data center market is strong and thriving. And the Silver Line arriving in Loudoun in 2020 really just opens that it really connects Loudoun. It really positions us with that existing connectivity to an even greater market. So sorry, Fairfax, this is our tagline. We're Loudoun, where the Silver Line really begins. What was that about competition? So when we're looking at these stations, we're really looking at them as part of a whole. As I said, we you hear the phrase transit-oriented development, but when we think about Innovation Station, as you saw in Jan's slide and you'll see in a few others, it literally splits the county line. That county line goes through the CIT building. We joke about what tenths of an acre is on the Loudoun side. There are multiple properties with multiple owners that are split by the county line. So that forces a collaboration, that forces a creativity that makes for really interesting economic development. When we're out marketing the Innovation Center Station, we're really primarily talking about two properties. There are other properties, and so I'm not doing that specifically to exclude anybody, but these are the two properties and their entitlements that in our materials we really focus on. The hub, and again, Tristan and Dave will go into the details in Waterside. And then taken together, and then when you take a look at, I think we have a pointer, at the proximity to what Jan said, you get an idea of the immensity that this station has to offer from a commercial development standpoint, from a mixed-use standpoint. When you look at the density of residential here and you look at the commercial up here and the airport right here, it really is an amazing opportunity. This property presents itself with really a gateway to a lot of different areas. This is what we have in terms of entitlement for the hub, but what I will tell you is we have been working very, very closely with the developers and the owners on the sites at Innovation Center Station to really kind of take those boundaries off, to really be creative and look at these properties for what they could be, to take into account the requests that we've had from different end users, not just one, from different, to say, what could this property be? We really feel that both the hub and Waterside give us an opportunity to redefine when people say these are suburban sites. When people tell us that this is so far out there, this is a suburban site, we really think we have an opportunity here to redefine that and redefine what people think of. What is urban 20 years from now? What is it 10 years from now? What does that mean? And to really change that perception. What is the employee of the next 20, 30, 40 years really going to want out of a site? When we hear that millennials or Gen Z, they want amenitization, they want to work, live, play, and learn in proximity, there's a whole lot of acreage sitting around Innovation Center Station. So we're pretty excited about what that means and what we can do. Oh, and then that's a giant picture of me. We'll go right past that. Thank you very much.
So as everyone knows, and many have heard me do my presentation before, I'm going to try to give an abbreviated version. This is the Innovation Center South project, and the station bridge is right here, and this is the county garage that Jan mentioned is currently under construction. It's a 2,200 car county-owned garage. We have virtually completed all the site work on the project. It was about $50 million of work that started with our rezoning in 2014, where we ended up with our 1.67 million square feet of mixed-use space. So that's 2 office buildings up here of 250,000 square feet each, 2 residential buildings here with a combined of about 550 units. This is a 100 to 200 unit building. Then you have our 330 unit with a 40,000 square foot retail component and a 190 key hotel. And as part of our rezoning, we worked with the county in the beginning stages of our public-private partnership to move the garage from the original proffered location at the front of the site by Sunrise Valley to the back of the site. And this was obviously better for visibility at the front, better for garage access, and it worked for everybody. And it was a wonderful collaborative process to get through that rezoning. And since 2014, we have been working on all the site work. And it's no pun based on our last name that there is a whole lot of rock out at this site. And everybody who's worked in this part of Northern Virginia knows that, and there were some slight delays on some of the utility work up by Sunrise Valley. But I spoke with many of you all earlier this afternoon, and I know you've mentioned you've driven by, and it's really almost done. The last piece of work is the burial of these overground poles and the expansion of Sunrise Valley, and then the $50 million of site work is complete. And we will have our 7 completed pads, and the county has already started on its 2,200 car, $60 million metro garage. So from our development standpoint, our intention is to build these 2 buildings ourselves. We are also in the apartment, the office, the hotel, and various other real estate businesses in the Delmarva area. We've ground leased these 4 pads to Penzance, which is a major multifamily and office developer in the Mid-Atlantic region, and we have ground leased this building pad to Shelter Group out of Baltimore, and they've done many other projects in Fairfax County, and I've worked with the supervisor and the board of supervisors on many of those over the years. So it's a very exciting project. I know nobody's mentioning the word Amazon or whatever that might be across the street. I just let it slip. But what I like to point out is that's not the only exciting thing happening in this area. We were a finalist for the Fannie Mae suburban office consolidation, which did end up going to Reston, but there have been many other big users like that are actively looking at our site that we talk to all the time that are not publicly known. But I would point out that there are many fish out in the sea, and this is a very exciting area, very exciting project, and the Metro is just bringing everything together. And now that it's there, in terms of the trains and the stations, people believe it. I don't have people saying to me, do you think they're really going to build that Metro? Yes, and it's coming, and the garage will be finished in 2019. That's going to be a huge milestone when they start the commissioning of the garage, and particularly the running of the trains. If everyone remembers in Tyson's, the visual of having the train going back and forth, not even with people in it, was just captivating. And that's what we expect will happen on the toll road. So with that, I would, right, it is a little, with that, this was just a landscape view of the project. I would be happy to take any questions if anyone has any regarding the project. I will unfortunately not be here at the end. I have a related matter to this to tend to and have to slip out a few minutes early.
Hey, Michael, tell me about Shelter Box. Is that affordable housing?
So Shelter Group, Shelter Group is out of Baltimore. They do an independent living, assisted living, multifamily concept. So they are a great user. They have a new building in Rockville, Maryland. I just saw a couple weeks ago. They have a very high-class building in Bethesda they're currently under construction with that will be very similar to their model for this. One of the reasons we thought that was a good use, there's 1,005 apartments zoned in this small 12-acre, really 9-acre site once you take out the garage. If you look at all the apartments around that, by bringing in that use, which is a highly needed use in this area, you diversify some of that apartment mix. And they are a wonderful company. We've enjoyed working with them so far, and they have successful sites all across the area.
How about the distance from parking to the actual Metro? Is that typical to Vienna, or what would we compare that to?
So from the garage to here, now how many feet is that? It is typical. It is similar to what it was. It's like a Vienna.
Okay.
You're in the quarter-mile radius. You're very close to the Metro. This is as close as you can get. And we've talked to, as a matter of fact, about this county garage communicating with these garages, which are subgrade here, to enable Metro riders to have complete undercover walk to the Metro bridge, and that's something we continue to explore with the county.
So handicap access, buses?
Handicap access, and with the grocery store being programmed for in here, it's really a plus for the store and the customers. They can go right from their car. They say they work in Tyson's. They get off the Metro, they walk into the grocery store, and they say, oh God, I don't want to have to walk all the way out and around to get in. So that's sort of the idea behind that.
Time frame on the 190 key room hotel?
So Very interesting you asked that. When we initially worked on this site, I would have told you 2 years ago that was absolutely the last thing that was going to go on the project, be built. There's a lot of hotels. We're in one right now. We own another hotel nearby here, the Crown Plaza. As we all know, those hotels really took a hit during the recession. The hotel market has come back with a good vengeance. We're doing great at our Crown Plaza, and I know the market as a whole is doing very well. And the interest in this hotel site is extremely high. And I think a lot of that is because of the visibility. It's going to be the first thing you see from Dulles Airport, the first thing you see on the Metro train, and you're not going to be able to miss it out of on the Sunrise Valley Drive. So a lot of hotel franchises want their flag on that. And I talk to more people about that than probably any other site on the project this year. So the short answer, I don't really have a timing for you, but I don't think this will be 10 years away. I think this is something that is going to happen in the not too distant future, in the next 5 years, and it just depends on who the big user is in the area, and if there's a particular type of hotel that works with that user. We don't want to box ourselves out in that way. The hotel is currently programmed to have 10 to 15,000 square feet of conference space, which is good for any big office user. And we want to make sure that the ultimate hotel can be customized for any major office user here or in the greater area.
It is great to be here today. I represent the 86th District. We're sitting here right now in the 86th District. It's Herndon, Chantilly, Oak Hill, parts of Sterling Park. And so it goes right up to the line, and where the CIT currently is now in the Innovation Station, that the Fairfax County portion is in the 86th District, just to give you an understanding of where I represent. I have the fortune of having gotten started with this innovation station over a decade ago. My old boss, John Faust, who we'll be hearing from, my very young and vibrant former boss, John Faust, hired me in 2008 when he came into office, and I represented the Herndon area for him. I was the boots on the ground here. And so I worked with many of you in this room, stakeholders, community members, leaders, as we planned for what the innovation station was going to look like. Not only did we work with the business owners and the chamber and the community members, but we also worked across jurisdictional lines with our local governments. So Fairfax County, Town of Herndon, Loudoun County, the airport, all got together at the staff level to make sure that we were talking to one another, making sure that we understood where the hiccups were going to be as far as where our comprehensive plans and our transportation plans laid, and tried to work out those details so that we found connections on roads that hadn't been placed in there before, made sure that we were looking outside the box, outside our own vision, to make sure that this was going to be a friendly place that we would be able to get across. So getting the bridge over the toll road was one of the things that we talked about as well. So I wanted to share that with you so that you understand that I understand this community really well and have a strong commitment to making sure that this works, and that you know that I am an open door and I'm going to be a partner with you in however I can as we move forward with the innovation station. It is an opportunity unlike any other in the metro region, I believe, for a successful location for businesses to come and thrive and people to come move in. I'm really excited about the opportunities that we have. I'm going to segue now into what we've been working on at the General Assembly, because I know that metro funding is something that we're all concerned with. And my colleague John Bell and I have worked tirelessly to advocate for the funding for the metro station. We are there for you all. We are going to do whatever we can to get the rest of our colleagues to step up to the plate to make sure that there's a more diverse level of funding, and it's not all on the backs of the NVTA. I just saw a press release just came out a few minutes ago before this came out from the other NVTA, the Transportation Alliance, asking the governor to make sure that we're diversifying and amending the bills that we passed earlier in the year. I'm hopeful that we can do that. We need you all to be partners with us now. John and I will, to speak to especially our Republican colleagues and colleagues downstate who are not feeling that they can sign on to another tax bill. I mean, it's a heavy lift for a lot of people, and a lot of people don't feel like they've got the bandwidth to do it and haven't been willing to step out on the plate. John and I and the rest of our Northern Virginia delegation is standing strongly with you all. We know that the airport, the metro system, the ports are the backbone of our economy in Virginia, and it should matter to everyone, not just us here in this room, not just Fairfax and Loudoun County, but it should matter to the entire Commonwealth because we generate so much revenue in Virginia. I want to thank you all for being partners in all of this and for spending your time on this beautiful day, the first lovely day in spring that we've had so far, and I'm happy to take any questions later as well, but I want you to know that I have an open door policy and I'm here with you. And I want to thank you, John and Georgia.
We're also very appreciative to have John Bell, delegate from the 87th District. Please welcome him.
Good afternoon. Wonderful to be here. I'm going to talk about a couple different things. My district, first off, is the 87th District, and I'm very proud to represent that. I'm next door to Jennifer's district in the 86th. By the way, that's probably the only ones in Virginia where the numbers kind of go together like that. The rest of them are all scrambled. But my district starts in Sterling, and I have most of Sterling. Jennifer has the rest. And then I stay on the western side of Route 28 and go all the way over to South Riding where I live. I have the western part of South Riding all the way out to Haymarket. So I have 22 Loudoun precincts and 3 Prince William precincts. So I'm mainly a Loudoun County district, fastest growth district in Virginia. So many of the economic issues, transportation issues that we talk about every day are really issues for my constituents because it's a business issue, it's a family issue, it's an issue that encompasses all of our lives. There were really 3 big issues that we faced this year going into the General Assembly session. And I want to talk about those briefly because I think they're directly impacting Metro funding. First is Medicaid expansion. We passed a version of Medicaid expansion in the House of Delegates, and the Senate did not pass that. So we were unable to make a budget. As a result of that, the governor has called us back for a special session on the 11th of April. And I hope that we can get something resolved then. My expectation, honestly, is we're going to need several special sessions to get there. I don't see us getting it done that day. We have a veto session on the 18th of April. I promise I will continue to get you updates on this as we go along. I sit on 3 committees in the General Assembly: Militia, Police, Public Safety, counties, cities, and towns, which is many of our local issues involved there. And this year I was appointed to appropriations. And frankly, I'm the only Loudoun person on appropriations. That's where my professional experience is at as a retired Air Force finance officer. So I enjoy being there and advocating for funding for us. But right now, I can tell you that the Medicaid expansion issue is the big issue that differentiates the 2 budgets. That difference is a very small difference to the tune of $625 million. So we have to work that out. And my hope is that we're able to work out a compromise. The bill that came out of the House was a tough vote for many people. It was a bipartisan bill that was passed. And my hope is that we'll get something passed through the Senate because, frankly, what it does for Virginia as a whole brings about $5 to $6 million a day of federal money that's our money back to Virginia. And also it really props up the hospitals in Southwest Virginia. Right now we have about 400,000 people. The numbers may vary a little bit, uninsured in Virginia, but it's somewhere around that number. And most of those people live in Southwest Virginia. The hospitals in Southwest Virginia are all teetering on bankruptcy. Our hospitals in this area do quite well. But we're going to have to dedicate more state tax dollars to keep those hospitals open, or we're going to have a large portion of Virginia just not covered by hospitals. And I think that's something that's going to be wrong. So I hope that we can come together on that. The second issue we had is a utility rate issue. We had a utility rate freeze on Dominion, which was passed, Dominion and other providers, Appalachia and other providers, it was passed a few years ago, and that was expiring, and we need to come together on that. This was very politically charged, and I'm really proud of the bill that we passed. A good bill to me means there's parts of it that everybody dislikes and parts of it they like, and this is no different. This is a bill I think most people really think it's a pretty good bill. It actually credits the ratepayers $200 million over the next 2 years, which was part of what was overcharged. And a lot of the rates that were set before were based on a series of assumptions, some which proved to be wrong. and this gives some of that money back to the ratepayers, which is what should happen. Also, there's rate increases going forward. We're going to now develop about 10 times more clean energy than we did before. We're going to invest in more grid improvements, so we'll have less outages when we have windstorms like we just encountered. We can do more of what, frankly, they do in Florida, where they're able to electronically reroute the grid and restore power quickly. So I think that's going to be good for all of us. And the other thing we're going to do, which is very important as we develop our economy, is having the ability to bury more lines. In my district, we've had 2 data centers, very controversial with lines above ground, and we develop a beautiful project like the one we've been talking about here. We put 165-foot towers of kind of ugly power lines in front of them, and nobody's happy about that. So in my district, we have 2 projects, and we've negotiated very hard. One of them, we came up with a good alternate pattern on Route 50, and the other one now is going to be buried in Haymarket, the lines, as a result of this bill. The third one was the Metro bill. The third big thing we faced this General Assembly session. There was a House version and there was a Senate version. They were very different. If you look at my votes, as a member of the Appropriations Committee, I had to vote on these bills multiple times at different parts of the development of the bills, and you'll see that I voted for them every time. And several times I had to hold my nose and vote for this bill. But if I didn't vote for it, the negotiations stopped and the bill died. In fact, when I was in Appropriations, the vote was 10-9. My vote was the deciding vote. I was the only Democrat who voted for that bill. That was Senator Saslaw's bill. So oftentimes we have to make tough votes. And to me, the big things on Metro, would I like to get more money from the Commonwealth for Metro? Absolutely. But the reality of it is, with the way the delegation is today, most of the people are from, the majorities, the Republican majorities in the House and the Senate are not from Northern Virginia. And they are not willing to put more money into the Metro. Now, I've been lobbying the governor as well as Delegate Boysko and many others in this room to try to get more money from the Commonwealth to Metro. I'd like to see that happen. Hopefully it will. I can't tell you it's going to be anywhere near $100 million as people want. Perhaps it'll be a little bit more. I do think there's other good revenue sources that haven't gotten a lot of attention. There was a huge one-time infusion with the money that comes from the outside the Beltway 66 express lanes. It's about $320 million coming to NVTA, and that is a huge inclusion of money. And I think that'll fund many projects that, frankly, will help. We also were able to adjust the gas tax this past session, and we set a floor on the gas tax. This is from the 2013 transportation bill that passed. And much of the tax revenue there was based on the volume of wholesale gas sold. And nobody at that time thought when gas was $4 or $5 a gallon it was going to go to the prices it is today. And as a result, the revenue has been much less than was anticipated. So what this does is it actually puts a floor so then we can have a minimum revenue stream that we can count on. I think that's very important as well, and that'll add money to all the transportation authorities. We also are going to look, frankly, I've never been an advocate for the tolls inside the Beltway. I voted against those every single time. And I'm very much against the fact that the tolls are set for 55 miles an hour when the public was told 45, and also the hours have been added 30 minutes on each side. We're looking to look at that algorithm, but I know that there's been more money generated. That's all Commonwealth of Virginia money. There's no outside partners on that. I'd like to see that excess money put into NVTA. So I think that's another chance to make whole the money we didn't get on this Metro bill. But I will tell you, when the Metro bill came down, some will criticize voting for it. To me, this was a no-brainer. I had to vote for it. Because if we didn't vote for this, then there was not a dedicated funding stream for Metro. If we didn't have a dedicated commitment from Virginia, as the way the timeline went, then Maryland would not step up and DC would not step up. Maryland's just stepped up, and it was because we did it in Virginia. And it's very important that we give the Metro the authority to do bonds and to capitalize major investments over a period of time, something they didn't have the ability to do. So if they bought new cars, which are currently beyond the lifespan they were expected to be used, they would have to pay for them up front in cash. No business operates like that. We capitalize things over a period of time, which doing that will actually make Metro safer and will help them to lower the operating costs in the long term. The older equipment they're operating today costs a lot more money to operate. So as a result of this investment, we did put some caveats on it. There are strings attached. I believe they need to make performance metrics. I believe that there's things that they need to control cost-wise. They're not getting an open checkbook. So we will watch them, and we will watch them carefully. But we have done, I believe, the right thing, and it was a tough vote to do it. But rest assured, we will continue to work on getting more Commonwealth money for Metro, accepting the deal we had today. So with that, as we get down to questions, I'll be happy to answer your questions. And thank you very much for having this forum and for this exchange today.
I represent the Broad Run District in Loudoun County, which has all of our metro stations, including the ones that are technically in Mr. Faust's district, as this one is with Innovation, but most of the development, as we know, is to the north in Loudoun County. And even though this is in Mr. Faust's district, I gotta say, this is probably the most exciting as far as the potential, because of some of the words that we're not allowed to say that we've been throwing around today. But also not just because of that, because even if that doesn't come through, we still are ready for major users. And with Loudoun County just winning the Customs and Border Patrol deal for 3,700 jobs at the Ashburn Metro Station, what we've done is shifted the entire center of gravity away from DC, away from Roslyn, out here. And so people know they can put job centers here. People know in the government that they can locate out here. Companies know we have the infrastructure to support them. No county is putting more money into road infrastructure per capita than Loudoun County. And by the way, having to do with NVTA, we need that funding. And I'm glad to hear that the delegates here support trying to get some of that NVTA funding back, not just taking away NVTA money and send it to Metro. We need both in order to make these metro stations successful. And I want to take a step back and actually talk a little about the infrastructure around these stations. I'm the outgoing chairman of the Route 28 Tax District Commission. And so that has to do with the transportation all around the area. The ramps around these stations are already bottlenecks, right? They're already bottlenecks. If you're coming from the toll road 28 north, if you're coming 28 south onto the toll road, they're bottlenecks already. If we land a major user, we have to be ready for those. And so we're actually commissioning studies to make sure that we can start those projects, fix those bottlenecks. The Transportation Improvement District already widened both sides of 28. We just finished the southbound widening, and we're about to start the northbound widening on 28 in this area. In addition, we're also going to be, we have to be ready. Here's the thing, if we land a major user here, whoever that major user could be, we have to be ready for the infrastructure. And so from Loudoun's side, from an infrastructure side, we're making sure we are ready for that. Davis Drive, that's the flyover bridge that was mentioned earlier. That is actually a perfect example of an NVTA project that's going to go through NVTA to get funding. It's a joint project submitted both by Fairfax and Loudoun. It's great. I think there's so many awesome things about the station, just from the perspective of how much we get to work together. You know, we get the next generation and experience, right, John? We aren't going to use the other word.
I like that.
Experience.
Hear that, Jennifer.
And really, I think that has to do a lot with also the mix of mentalities we have too. We have green space that is ready for development. How cool is that? Around a metro station, walking distance to a metro station. And not only do we have that here, obviously we also have that at the Ashburn Metro Station and at the Gateway Station. And so there's a lot of exciting things happening in our county, and we're ready for them. And the other thing is too, is a lot of people say, you know, housing's an issue in Loudoun. Yes, housing prices are doing very well in Loudoun. We also have more than 9,000 units on the Silver Line in our 2.5, if you can count Innovation, 3 stations. We have more than 9,000 units ready to go that have not been built. And that includes the ones that you've seen under construction at the Ashburn Metro Station. So yes, we have housing available if we land big users. That housing, I think you'll hear later from our developers, is ready to go once we land them. And so there's just a lot to be excited about. There's just so much to be excited about with this station. And what it comes down to is we have to make sure we're ready for the excitement as a government. Instead of being reactive, we need to be proactive, and I think that's the steps that we're trying to do. Hopefully, with this Metro funding bill, we can do a couple things. One, the House delegates and the state Senate and the governor can make sure that we have dedicated funding for revenue. That helps the localities, because guess what? That means less dollars we have to send to Metro as part of our capital contribution, which we have to send every year. And so that's a good thing. We aren't going to see our payments balloon because Metro has not invested over time in itself. The General Assembly will take care of that. Maryland and DC will take care of that. We aren't going to have to pony up the extra money. Now, of course, if we can do that without getting rid of the money we're using right now to build roads, that would be obviously a good thing. We need that for the Davis Drive overpass. We need that to make sure we can connect innovation to Pacific. So we have 2 major ways of getting into the development. We need that so we can continue to look at other big projects, like trying to talk to our brethren over in Maryland, which I'm not giving up on, by the way. I'm not giving up on that. There are ways to connect Maryland and Virginia here without impacting any residents, especially on the Virginia side. Maryland, it gets a little harder, but it can be done. And we aren't going to give up on that either. The county has actually commissioned in our comprehensive plan to look at future bridge crossings, and that it would come to Route 28. And I know it's contentious, and I know it's political, but we can't give up on that, especially if we land major users, because imagine being able to get to BWI to Dulles within 40 minutes. It would strengthen both airports, right? It would strengthen both airports. We each have a competitive advantage. If you look at the development in Rockville and Gaithersburg, and you look at the development here, there are so many things that would strengthen us if we were tied together. If we have that free trade mentality versus build the wall mentality, which is basically what the river is right now, we could accomplish a lot more together. And so what we're trying to do, obviously, we've built a lot of bridges with Fairfax County working on this. You've heard some of that in the news. We're excited about that. If a certain user doesn't land here, that partnership, I think, stays in place, right, John? I think it stays in place, and we walk united together. And show me many localities that are willing to do that. I mean, if you knew some of the things that were going on behind the scenes, it's really, truly inspiring, whether it's, crossing party lines, working together on some really creative financial ways to help make certain deals happen. It's exciting when you're able to tap in and have presentations from both Fairfax County and Loudoun County. Hear about, we have the most bees in Virginia, right? But then, don't worry, they aren't going to be at the metro station, okay, I promise. Unless you want some honey, it's really good. And then at the same time, being able to say we have Raytheon and AOL, and then all of the users that we've seen on the Dulles corridor, and also the Customs and Border Patrol, and all of these things, and obviously the most internet connection in data centers. Certain users have a lot of data centers in our area too. And so if there's anything more that we can be doing, this is the other thing. I heard we have an open door policy. I think it's the same thing, is that we can only do what we know we need to do, right? And so that's why I'll pass out my card to anybody. You can have my cell phone. If you have ideas on what we should be doing to be prepared, there's things that we can do to help make sure we are better prepared for when Metro comes and to develop this to be the best it can be. Let us know. You're gonna hear from the developers in our area who I'm excited about, who are, I think, very future forward thinkers, how to create spaces instead of just the normal, typical Metro developments that either are slammed with townhouses or just concrete, actually creating parks and places that people want to be near the station. Some of that stuff, I think, will truly make this station completely unique, and we want to support that as much as possible. So with that, I will yield to questions at the end. I will give my information to anyone who has ideas, and thank you so much for being here today.
Well, want to talk about the Innovation Center Station and the development around it, but something we all got to stay focused on. Ron referred to this as the infrastructure. I mean, we're not just building a metro station. We're not just building housing developments and offices. We're building communities, and so a lot of what we have to stay focused on as we go through this entire process is, what's it going to be like after we're done, after we've approved and built these projects. So I'll try to mention some of that as I go through. The first thing I want to do is say, Fairfax County has a strategic plan for economic success. That's what it's called. And we've identified 6 goals in that plan. And what we're doing with the Silver Line and in general, and the Innovation Station in particular, touches almost all of those goals. Not only touches them, but moves them forward so well. So the goals we have, first of all, we want to further diversify our economy. Well, why is that? Because we've been so reliant on federal government over the years. It's served us very well, but since the recession and sequestration, not so much. So the development along the metro is helping us diversify our economy. We want to create places where people want to be. Why do we want to do that? Well, because we want people to be happy. But we also want people to come here with the skills that employers are looking for to help us build and diversify our economy. The rail system and what we're doing with transit-oriented development advance that goal as well. One of our goals is to improve the speed, consistency, and predictability of the development review process. We are well on our way to doing that. Staff has done amazing things over the last couple of years. And I think just, as Ron said, working together interjurisdictionally, whether it's with Herndon or with Loudoun, with the Airport Authority, with Fairfax County, all helps that. And then invest in natural and physical infrastructure. I got elected to the board in 2008, so I'm one of the experienced, not old, guys, who's been around since we broke ground on phase 1 of the rail system. That has been an amazing success story. What's happening in Tyson's is just exceeds our wildest imagination. And phase 2 is going to have the same results, I'm quite confident. So what the Silver Line is a major part of our implementation of an economic strategy. Phase 2, as most of you know, is 11.4 miles. 6 stations. We're going to talk mostly about the Innovation Station, but Reston, Herndon, Innovation, Dulles, Loudon, and Ashburn. The Wheelie and 4 stations in Tyson's were phase 1, and they're doing spectacular. So phase 2, just to give you a little background, it's a $2.77 billion. So when we're done, we're going to have about $6 billion invested in Dulles Rail. That would be all the players, the feds, the state, the property owners who have been contributed large sums. Phase 2 is about 78% complete. We're told it's on time and on budget. Contractual substantial completion date, August 2019, when Water Board will set a date for revenue operations. That's once they get substantial completion, they test the heck out of it. Took a long time to get from substantial completion to revenue operations on phase 1. Hopefully we won't have the same problems on phase 2. Okay, so Innovation Station North area. This is the area that is the CIT property. It is basically a greenfield, as they say, in terms of development around the metro station. The CIT property in Fairfax County is 20 acres. In Loudon, it's 5 acres. And then, as you know, and as was pointed out, you have the hub and the water side. If I can see if this thing works. Yeah, the L4, L3, this is pretty much developed out. This is more residential, but not within the quarter mile or the commercial area where we'll have our new tenant, we hope. So, I'm not going to talk any more about that other than to say it's, we went through, Delegate Boysko pointed out, we went through a really good process. I didn't, I don't know what I touched.
Last call, John.
Delegate Boysko went through the process with you. We went through, we had a tremendous community-driven planning for that north side of the Innovation Station. We came up with coordination with Loudon on this one was very significant. There was initially plans to run a bridge, basically, I guess from about here to here, a traffic bridge, which would have taken the heart out of our transit-oriented development area in Fairfax County. So we met for many, many months, I don't know how, many months. Eventually come up with a plan that now the bridge starts over here in Fairfax and lands in Loudon and preserves for us the ability to develop around the metro station rather than have a road running through it. Okay, so this is really where the action is right now in Fairfax County. And this is the Innovation Station south. So we're the CIT on this side of the Dulles Toll Road, and then Land Bay A over here, which is where we have a lot of activity. In 2013, Jeff and others worked on a comprehensive plan, and we come up with one that I'm very proud of. I think it's a good plan for the growth of this area, and we'll talk about what's happening out there. I mean, this area is, I represent all the way from Arlington border to the Loudon border. And, I can tell you, it's not like this closer into Arlington, where, other than Tyson's, which is right outside of my area, but out here you can't keep track of everything that's happening. There's so much going on. So this is basically the area that I'm going to talk about. You have 9,000 residential units. We're up to about 10,000 with people coming in. A lot of rezoning properties that we had zoned for industrial, commercial coming in for rezonings. But that's what we have going on out there. There's Arrowbrook. Hey. That is a great project, and I will mention it a little bit more as we go through. Okay, so here's Arrowbrook spelled. Thank you, thank you. So there's a lot going on here. Jeff's going to speak, so I'm just going to say that it's been a pleasure working with him. He's the type of developer who appreciates that to be successful, we have to build communities. We can't just build buildings. And so you're all familiar, I'm sure, with the Arrowbrook athletic field facility and things like that. That's what will make this area a community and more than just a bunch of new buildings. So Maker's Rise was mentioned previously. In terms of infrastructure, this was a conversion or a rezoning from office buildings to residential. But one of the things I really appreciated about this one was there is a requirement, not a requirement, we call profits, it's voluntary, but every developer estimate, the schools estimate the number of kids that will come out of that development, and then the developer contributes cash to help us pay for infrastructure for those school kids. This guy did both that normal stuff, plus for every unit that he's building, he's contributing an additional $1,250. So you can see, everybody's buying into this. We've got to build a community if we're going to be successful. Here's the rezoning the Woodland Park Waterview West, another good project, converted, I think commercial, allows 5-story multi-family building. This would be right on Centreville Road, I guess. There's Centreville on the other side of Arrowbrook. Pomeroy Clark, this project is outside the quarter-mile, half-mile, but it's in the Land Bay that we mentioned. Whoops, I'm sorry. The thing that stands out here is this developer contributed 6 acres dedicated for a school site. So on his property, he's contributed 6 acres. On that school site, we'll get a school, which I've told developers, I can't keep building housing. There's no place for these kids to go to school. And so, people are stepping up. So we got that, and there'll be a playing field. So you need fields, you need schools, you need a lot of things to really make your community work. Next one, Aurora Station at Dulles, across the way from the previous one we looked at. Another large development. Liberty Crossing, this one is huge. Proposes to rezone almost 34 acres that's currently I-4. Again, we didn't have plans for schools and fields and that sort of thing out here because it was all industrial and commercial. But now he wants to convert and include in just this one project almost 1,800 units of residential. So that's the others I talked about. I think the previous one was pending, and this is pending. It's currently before us for review. Stanley Martin's, here's another one. In addition to fields, schools, we need roads. This applicant has proposed to construct McNair Farms Drive to connect Dulles Technology Drive to Centreville Road, something we desperately need and didn't have funding for, wasn't in our 6-year transportation funding plan. Another pending application, Middleton Farms. This developer is a relatively small project, 328 multifamily and single-family homes, and yet he's constructing a road that will extend Sunrise Valley Drive, make the extension of Sunrise Valley Drive, but also he's dedicating 35 acres for parkland, and it's not really buildable land, but he's contributing it to the Park Authority, and there will be 2 new athletic fields constructed there. So again, building community. Public facility needs, we need parks. Over the last couple of years, applicants out here have contributed in cash, in addition to the land, over 3.1 million. The 6 acres I mentioned for the school negotiation, getting the $1,250 I mentioned per unit, in addition to the per student proffer that's normally offered, and the 2 additional fields on those 35 acres I talked about. So it's starting to come together. I'm a little bit less nervous today than I was probably a year ago with how this is all going to come together. Some major transportation improvements. Route 7 will impact this area, obviously. 6.9 miles in Fairfax County, where it's fully funded. There'll be a design build contract made with the builder, design builder, this month or next. It'll include 6.9 miles of additional lane in both directions on Route 7 from Reston to Tyson's, but also a 10-foot shared use pass on both sides of the highway. So that's coming. We've got the Herndon Metrorail Station Access Management Study. What this is, basically, we've done it in Tyson's, we've done it in Reston, now we've done it in Herndon. We've looked at the area and said, what would it take to make these new metro stations accessible by pedestrians and by bike riders, basically. We have funded, the money has been funded, it's in our 6-year plan, it's available, $21 million to add pedestrian bicycle access to both metro stations, Herndon and Innovation. This was the bridge Ron mentioned. This is just an awesome infrastructure improvement that will start on Sunrise in Fairfax County and land in Loudon and become part of the Davis Drive extension. That will make that area work in terms of transportation, but it will also be very important to the town of Herndon, because this traffic would otherwise go up with the 608 and come down into Herndon. So it's going to be good. And we're getting close. Application, plan transportation improvements. This is just a list. I mean, you get a sense, we're not ignoring the infrastructure needs. These are all part of our comprehensive plan, all things we're working into our funding for transportation improvements in this area, just south, the area south of the Innovation Station. And it includes a grid of streets that will, throughout that Land Bay A, there'll be a grid of streets, so we're not relying just on the main roads going through. Big number, $694 million, but we're coming together with plans to make it work. Okay, and then just the 2 garages were mentioned. I'll just say the Innovation garage is a little bit further behind. It's estimated 30% complete, but that's because of the rock. Man, he wasn't kidding. That rock is unbelievable. And then the Herndon Station is about 70% complete. Fairfax County's building both those, paying for both those. We'll collect the parking fees. That was part of the deal with the federal government when we got our TIFIA loans back right before the phase 2 was able to start and be considered fully funded. Okay, bus service enhancements. I think it's the final slide. We did it with phase 1, Wheelie and in Tyson's. Spent a whole lot of time working with the community, figuring out the bus routes that will be most effective. And then we went through the process, reviewing everything, identifying the issues, selecting a preferred service, and then the board approved it and dramatically improved bus service to the 4 Tyson stations, to the Wheelie station. We'll do the same for Innovation and for Herndon when the time comes. So I think that's it. Questions? So, thank you.
I would just say kind of to start things out, as has been mentioned, as a developer, this has been it's been a really pretty incredible process in working collaboratively with kind of both an interjurisdictional team in Loudoun County and Fairfax County, as well as even with folks from the state. And I think there's been a great convergence of a vision here, I think, of realizing what a unique opportunity we have and what this place can be with some kind of big ideas to be implemented. We will focus, as far as what we're going to be showing on the screen here, it will really focus on the hub owned site. But I think we've kind of seen, again, in the news, some of the collaboration with involvement of the CIT and the different parties here. So this site has been here. There's a lot of history here. This used to be zoned as a 3.2 million square foot suburban office park. A prior owner with whom I was actually involved also took this through a significant rezoning to bring the hub to about a 5.5 million square foot mixed use entitlement that included, it basically retained the 3.2 million square feet of office and added to the mix about 1,265 units of residential, a few 100,000 square feet of retail and amenity space, as well as hotel, and has become a kind of full mixed-use project. Just to set from kind of an aerial view standpoint, all against, I mean, it is very powerful. Standing on the upper level of a CIT building and looking out the windows there, and just, I mean, literally, you can stand at the corner of that building and you see, here's our metro station and here's our airport. So that's really where we are, obviously, on kind of the right quadrant of this page is the location of the site. And here you can see the hub site kind of here with the CIT building, water side to the north, metro right here, and the airport right here. Again, under the prior owner, put in a fully dedicated interchange at the owner's cost on Route 28 to access Innovation Avenue. And this past year, we completed the construction of realigned Innovation Avenue that goes from that interchange straight across to where the kiss and ride will be at the metro.
This is our favorite aerial because it really gives you a sense of some of the innate characteristics of the site as well as the transportation infrastructure around it. So just to make sure everybody's clear, our site is essentially this. It comprises 85 acres. Those 85 acres principally reside in Loudoun County, although we do have a portion in Fairfax, and the eastern portion of our site borders the 25-acre CIT property here and represents the border between Loudoun and Fairfax County. This entire parcel to the north of Innovation Avenue is the waterside site, 220 acres approximately, that's sort of organized around the 55-acre quarry that you see there. Importantly, we have started to form a very close working relationship with the owners of Waterside, both in connection with the pursuit that shall not be named, and on a sort of general basis. I think we recognize that it makes sense to think about our sites together, and it makes sense to think about our sites together in connection with the CIT property too. When you look at this point of view, you realize that there are essentially 400 greenfield acres bounded by Rock Hill Road to your east, 606 to your north, 28 to your west, and the toll road to the south. Obviously, Dulles is just off the screen to the bottom left, and the metro is coming. We think collectively this represents the most compelling transit-oriented greenfield development opportunity in the entire region of Northern Virginia. And as the master developers of the hub portion, a year into this endeavor, we don't think we'll ever see an opportunity like this again. Not only because of the expanse of the site, the nature of the transportation infrastructure, but also because of the very special characteristics of the site itself. If you guys were to put on your boots and come take a walk through these properties, you would discover that they have beautiful undulating topography, a gorgeous stream river valley, giant boulder outcroppings. This 55-acre quarry, as I'm sure many of you know, is being wound down operationally over the next few years with the intention to convert it into a beautiful quarry lake and park. There is a bucolic natural splendor to this property that is sort of shocking given the transportation infrastructure and economic growth that's happening around it. And an appreciation for those characteristics is at the core of the vision that we have put together for this property and that we're sort of out there selling to anyone that will listen to us. So we're going to show you a couple of renderings in a moment that kind of give you the flavor of what we're thinking, and hopefully you'll find it as inspiring as we do. So going back to this first page, obviously a tapestry of nature and urbanism is sort of our theme. We also call it bucolic urbanism when we're looking for people to make fun of us. You can see just in this watercolor some of the major geological features I was referencing. This line of trees that you see delineated by this path here is actually a beautiful boulder ridge with about 40 feet in height. We intend to preserve that, reveal those boulders, give you a real sense of sort of geological drama on the spine sort of running down the border between the CIT property and ours. Here you see the stream river valley that I referenced. Today that's essentially a 11-acre swale with about 40 feet in depth. There's water running through it today. That water can be amplified by tying it back into the quarry so that it becomes something more akin to a small river. Very, very special feature, got a lot of great ecology already there. And then the other thing you see is just generally how much green space we intend to preserve despite a fair amount of densification. You know, our feeling is that Reston Town Center is an absolutely fantastic walkable mixed-use development. We don't want to bring more of the same to this market. But what we think the market doesn't have is something that sort of puts modern urbanism and nature together in a sort of balanced way that gives you both the enjoyment of density and energy and sort of pedestrian excitement with lots of sort of natural relief and respite. Most large-scale master plan mixed-use developments are driven by hardscape. They have a hard soul. And it makes sense when you're starting with a flat prep pad. What else are you going to do? But we're starting with something very, very different here, and we're committed to sort of preserving it. So if you want to click through to the next rendering. So here's a great shot. You are standing on the western edge of our site. You're looking east. Here's the toll road over here. The new Innovation Center Metro is just on the other side of those tall buildings, which are imagined on the CIT property. What you're looking at today, represents the first phase of our planned development. Here's the stream river valley, the 11-acre swale that I referenced. The idea is, as I said, to amplify the water, to beautify the inside of it. We're contemplating doing a big outdoor amphitheater sort of down in the swale that gives you a sense of being sort of nested in this sort of low-lying park. Dramatic pedestrian connections that sort of connect the land bay over here to the heart of the project over there. Nature and walking trails running through the swale and along the water. This is a contemporary retail village. 240,000 feet of retail contemplated there, 2 major entertainment venues, a 40,000 square foot international food emporium, and a 1,500 seat live music venue, together flanking an 1.5 acre great lawn in the center of the project, kind of the sort of centerpiece of the public space. You'll notice that all the retail here is 1 and 2 stories. So this is a little bit of a different paradigm, right? Normally in these mixed use projects, you have very tall buildings sitting on top of the retail. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. Here, because of the nature of the site, we really wanted to keep a lower density, lower scale, sort of village type construct that gives you a sense of openness and a connection to public space and green space around you, and then push the density to the perimeter. So you can see, obviously we're densifying with office and a little bit of boutique hotel along the toll road here, and then pushing out to the CIT property. And then obviously you see just the general commitment to the preservation of green space just inside the 85 acres of the hub. There are 5 acres of sort of walking and or 5 miles of walking and nature paths. We've gone through a larger master planning exercise that combines our site with Waterside. That takes you up to 10 acres.
10 miles.
I'm sorry?
10 miles.
10 miles of walking paths and nature trails. So a really, really encompassing experience just between the 2 sites. So this is maybe our favorite shot. You're now down in the swale, and you're looking back up to the retail village. Here's the sort of food emporium at the entrance to the project.
That's where the bees' honey comes from.
Yeah. So this is a very realistic depiction of what this would actually be like. This is taking the existing body of water, amplifying, as I said. We've engaged a very, very good landscape architect, Thomas Woltz out of Charlottesville, who knows this ecology very, very well, to kind of consider how we take what's there and turn it into this. And the assessment is that this is a fully realistic vision. But it captures, and there are many moments throughout the project that sort of have this flavor, but it really captures that sense of both natural serenity, sort of on the brink of a sort of modern town on the hill, which is sort of our kind of core theme. Here's another perspective, not too distant from the one we were just looking at. You're at the entrance to the project, coming off Innovation Avenue. Again, pretty compelling juxtaposition of the sort of swale park on the right. Gives you a sense of just how much energy there'll be inside the public space when you sort of discover this project, but also a sense of just how open it is, sort of visually and experientially at the same time. This is a concluding image. It's sort of we did this as a demonstration of just how much culture these two counties of Loudoun and Fairfax sort of offer independently and jointly. We view our site somewhat immodestly as a potential nexus that kind of brings these two counties together, not only geographically but culturally as well. Fairfax is Fairfax. It's an economic powerhouse. It already has two fantastic urban centers, a tremendous corporate base. Obviously, the tide of history is moving west. Loudoun, historically a more pastoral community, is now a high-growth business oriented community as well, and we sort of see these two big paradigms sort of coming together on our site with metro connectivity, Dulles adjacency at the intersection of these two major highways, and we would like to honor a location that strategic by putting together a vision that's original and forward thinking, and hopefully exciting to a bunch of major corporate users that are looking for progressive visions out of developments of this kind. That's it.
I'll try to be brief. First of all, whenever I'm given the microphone or the forum, I like to remind everybody, at least us in Fairfax County, that we would have no Phase 2 stations were it not for the commercial landowners stepping up and forming the Phase 2 tax district, because the county had made it very clear to us for a considerable time that without the $330 million that the landowners were willing to chip in, those stations would disappear. And so the night many, many years ago when Mike O'Reilly and his colleagues on the Herndon Town Council scuttled the old single district, and I walked out rather crestfallen that night. It was a question in my mind, were we ever going to be able to form a Phase 2 district? But I always want to commend Peter Johnston at Boston Properties and his colleagues, and Mike Cooper and his colleagues at Brandywine, who were the principal commercial office owners in the Phase 2 district, for finally stepping up and saying this was the right thing to do. Not that it didn't take a little time on my part to respectfully cajole them and make the case for Metrorail and tell them they needed to be good corporate citizens, but any event, don't ever lose sight of the fact that that was a critical accomplishment in bringing this magnificent transit system to our doorstep. Now, John, if you could bring up the PDF, not the photographs, they're outside the.
Yeah, I couldn't get the.
No, go outside that folder that says photographs.
Okay.
To the root of the drive. Okay, go to the very bottom PDF. Let's see if that'll launch. It's a beautiful scene.
I will tell you, just so you're not all in suspense. Georgia mentioned Ruth and Hal Launders, the last one, right? Mixed-use community, retail space. Georgia mentioned Hal Launders and his wife Ruth, who moved to Fairfax County in 1946 and bought a 300-acre odd farm just south of the town of Herndon. I was fortunate enough to know him for many years, and eventually they didn't have any, they had no children, so they decided to put that land into a charitable trust. So this is real estate that's owned by the Ruth and Hal Launders Charitable Trust. We are not developers. We cannot engage in real estate development activity. Were we to do so, we jeopardize our tax-exempt status. But we like to say that doesn't keep us from thinking like developers. So the strategy is to try to position the land to be as appealing and as ripe for development as possible. We have sold roughly 7 acres to Pulte Home, and they're currently developing residential units, both traditional townhouses and so-called stacked townhouses. We have under contract to Pulte the 96 condominium units, which will be in 3 buildings. So you put that package together, either the land that's been sold or what's under contract, you have roughly 10 acres. That leaves us 16 acres. This D2 available is entitled for a multifamily rental building and associated street level retail, roughly 350 dwelling units, about 40,000 square feet of retail. It will be site plan entitled by the end of the year. We'd love to have a quality developer to step forward and say we'd like to build this building, but that has yet to occur. And then the balance of the site, which is give or take 12 acres, is for the highest density, fronting on the Dulles Toll Road and the Silver Line. 3 office building pads, a hotel pad, a retail pad, and a high-rise residential pad. All right, now that's all I'm going to really say about Arrowbrook, because I want to pick up on something that John Faust said earlier about the Innovation Center District infrastructure. When I got into this project, God knows it's nearly a quarter of a century I've been working on the Launders farm to try to, and incidentally, I love to say this, when I first got into this, I was a young man, I never knew how challenging it is to turn dirt into cash, even for charity. It is a long-term game, let me tell you. But anyway, if you could, there's on that PDF, if you get to it, there's one that says spring 1937. Let's see if we can get that one up. So you have to go to the root. I see you didn't have IT training. All right, see, up there, that one right there. Launch this one. All right, this is kind of an interesting aerial photograph from 1937. This is 10 years before Hal and Ruth Launders bought their farm. But you can't see it, but very faintly here, there's a little white line. And this was a road that came this was Centreville Road, coming out of the town of Herndon. And there was a road that went down west and then headed north. It was called Horsepen Road. There still is Horsepen Road, remnants elsewhere in the county, but this was part of it. When the United States government condemned the land for the Dulles Access Road, this was taken from the Launders farm and created the current boundary, which is at this yellow line. So for many, many years, I have been confronting the fact that immediately on the other side of our boundary is this vestige land, remnant land, the fee is owned by the United States, it's under control of the Airports Authority, and no one knows it's there. And so my challenge, or my vision, was to put this strip of land back into some productive public use and help it achieve this connectivity of the Innovation Center TSA, which John alluded to earlier. So when we did the HamSams project, the task force, John was nice enough to put me on that. Jennifer, I think, recruited me to go on that task force. And I brought this to the attention of the group, and so this ended up as one of the high priority projects. So very grateful now that the County Transportation Department has in their Capital Projects Division a 10-foot wide asphalt lighted bike pedestrian trail. And I've got the plans and everything, but we're having such difficulty getting up. I have no IT department, and apparently the Greater Dulles Regional Chamber of Commerce doesn't. No. Go to those photographs. Bring up any one of these photographs. You can see, that's a good one. This is what it looks like. This strip of ground, which is under control of the Airports Authority. The proposal is to convert this to a trail, which would run from Centreville Road all the way to the end of our property and then connects a length through the Homewood Suites Hotel and the office building on their side, cross Centreville Road at a Hawk pedestrian-controlled intersection, and then hook up with the asphalt sidewalk on the south side of Sunrise Valley, leading right up to the station. So hopefully this would be a nice path. It would also serve people in the South Eldon Street, town of Herndon, going underneath the toll road. So it'll link up very nicely to that. The challenge is to secure the easement from the Airports Authority, and I'm about ready to make the application to do that. And then also the off-site easement from the adjacent commercial landowners. But it's got a critical momentum to it. I think it's going to happen. Our trust has committed to build this segment along our frontage and to make the application to the Airports Authority to secure the easement and also to contribute $100,000 to the entire project. And then the county has committed to build the remaining segment to link up with Sunrise Valley Drive. So hopefully that'll be open and usable and ready for walking to the station on the day that we have Silver Line service to Innovation Center and beyond. And I'll walk with anybody that day if they want to come. And also I hope to be on the train. It's been a long, long ride. Okay, now we can adjourn for refreshments, right? Oh, questions, all right, okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
One of the things, I think part of this is, Ron, I really enjoyed your presentation. The collaboration, something that apparently wasn't there in the past, but boy, I tell you what, I'm really excited. We have a lunch series we do every other month called In a Word. We pick a word. If I had to pick a word, it would be confidence. What I heard from our elected officials, what I heard from the developers, we should be confident, because if you look around, you see things. I'm confident and rested in what they've done and what they can achieve. When I see lots of unused property, lots of forest, you're going, really? It's happening, right? You heard from folks that are doing this and planning it. It's happening. I'm excited, but I'm really confident. And that's the kind of one of the things that I really want to get from this, to see where we are, because as we think about where we're moving forward, those are things I want to worry about.
Alzheimer's is not just a problem for the person with disease. It's a problem for the caregiver also.
We had been on a long journey of 18 months or more trying to figure out what was going on with my husband. No diagnosis. Do tests, come back in a few months, and finally we had a name to put on this disease.
I waited 3 weeks. We waited 3 weeks to get an appointment there. Just the day that I got her out of bed and I got her ready to go, I received a phone call saying, please don't come, the doctor doesn't want to see you. Well, it turned out that the reason that he panicked was that he had seen the notes from her psychiatrist in New York, who said that it might be possible Lewy body dementia. And he said, I don't know anything about Lewy body dementia. I don't want to see this woman.
So I began to research as much as I could find out and try to sort out reliable web information, because the doctor really didn't tell me a lot.
Couldn't remember how to get places he'd always been, getting overexcited about losing things. Something was just wrong. So I got him to a neurologist. He had all these evaluations done. In 2006, we were given the diagnosis of early dementia. I was in this alone, and I knew what the future of Alzheimer's would be.
It was such a welcome relief when I came to the first meeting. But I will say it was scary as well, because most of the people at that first meeting had had a diagnosis for quite a bit longer, and their loved ones were farther along on this journey. They had many more symptoms than my husband showed at the time. So that was a big eye-opener.
And I found out that this group was so helpful. It wasn't just a matter of helping with suggestions about how to solve this problem or how to solve it. It's how you yourself can deal with these things.
It gives me a place to talk about what's going on, to ask, to share information, because some of the people that are further down this road than I am have learned things. And some of the speakers that you've brought in that are professionals in this field have been very helpful.
I was told that caregivers are very important, and if you're going to continue to be able to help your wife, you better take care of yourself.
I remember you brought in some physical and occupational therapists and speech therapists to talk about the kinds of therapies that apply to this disorder. And my Rich's doctor never suggested that, so when I went to the next appointment, I said, how about if we get these services for him? And he was glad to write the prescription, but he didn't volunteer it. And so it gave me questions to ask the doctor and made me better informed so I could ask the right things at the appointment.
The support group is a lot more than just trying to help you cope with the problems of the person with the Alzheimer's. They're there to help you cope with your problems, which you tend to view as not relevant. You're too busy worrying about the other person, so you put them up on the shelf. I will forever, ever be thankful to that group for giving me the courage to just save myself.
I listen, and quite frankly, I have learned a great deal here, especially from the women who have been dealing with their spouses and what they've been going through. You know, I think, oh God, is that my future? And it very well could be. So I'm learning, and it's preparing me for what's coming up.
Insight and Christy were there for me every step of the way, from beginning to end. And they will be there for you too, if you ever need them.